Welcome back to another week of Power Rankings. Week 8 has passed, and we got some big results. We had some huge divisional games this week. Overall, great week of football to continue what has been a great season so far. For this channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave your MVP pick down below. My MVP pick right now is Josh Allen, so I want to see your guys' pick, and we'll debate a bit in the comments. And let's get us to 250 because I will be bringing on a subscriber to talk about their favorite team for a video. So get me to 250, share with all your friends, and let's get into these power rankings. The Carolina Panthers sit at 32. They lose 28-14 to the Denver Broncos. Bryce Young was back in this week, and it ultimately didn't change that much for this 1-7 football team. You had J.C. Horn beefing with Sean Payton because Sean Payton just started fooling around. That's how much this Panthers team is really not great at all. And they sit at the bottom of the NFL standings and the bottom of these power rankings because it seems like their season has been over for a couple weeks now. We have some movement near the bottom. We have the Tennessee Titans, who got absolutely destroyed in 3 quarters against the Detroit Lions. The Lions didn't play at all seriously in the fourth, and it was a 52-14 win for the Lions, where the Titans' defense and special teams were just horrendous. They let a team that only had 85 yards passing score multiple special teams touchdowns, let a running back throw a touchdown, and a lot more that it's just not looking great for Tennessee. They sit 1-6, and they're at 31 this week. The New Orleans Saints continue to tumble down these power rankings. They are now all the way near the bottom at 30. They lose this week to the Los Angeles Chargers, where the offense did not score a touchdown. They got only 8 points, and really just an unproductive day from Spencer Rattler at the quarterback position. And this team has really turned around from what we thought they were going to be early on. They are now pretty much out of it. And even though Derek Carr seems like he will be potentially coming back against the Panthers this week, I don't expect it to change much in New Orleans, and they're at number 30. Officially hit rock bottom in New York. They lose to New England on a late touchdown. And really, what has happened? This team traded for Devontae Adams. They got everything to make this team look like a serious Super Bowl contender, and it is just not clicking at all. They've lost 5 in a row now, and the season is basically over. And a loss to the Texans on Thursday night would make them 2-7 and make it basically impossible for this team to come back. Aaron Rodgers is having possibly the worst year of his career. It makes sense because it's probably his last or second to last. And this team is probably in contention to get a quarterback in next year's draft, and I think that changes everything for the Jets. But for now, this season, a mess. They're at number 29. A resilient win for the New England Patriots over the Jets. I've moved them up 3-28. And this team lost Drake May early on. And Jacoby Brissett takes over and has possibly his best couple quarters of the season. The defense was playing extremely well and limiting an offense that has a lot of talent for the Jets. And ultimately, this was New England's best performance the entire season. They looked like they had nothing going, and they turn around this week and have a great game against the Jets. So, although this season is not going to produce anything for New England, at least they're going to show flashes. Hopefully Drake May gets healthy for them, and once he comes back, this Patriots team can start winning some more games. But for now, they're at number 28. Vegas drops this week to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I've kept them at 27. But they played not so bad of a game versus the undefeated Chiefs, but it's just this team's quarterback problems that are really going to get in their way until they got a quarterback, and that's what's probably going to happen at the end of the season, whether it be via trade or via draft. This team is going to get a quarterback. Obviously, Minshew or O'Connell are not the answer, and this team is potentially selling, but it seems like they're going to hold on to Max Crosby. So there's going to be pieces there. Brock Bowers continues to play great football, but for now, the Raiders 27. More of the same for the New York Giants this season, as most seasons under Daniel Jones as their quarterback. They start off 2-6, and this was a winnable game for them against the Steelers on Monday night. They had a fumble late and a drive where they potentially could have tied it up. They went for two on possibly the worst play I have ever seen, and they'll go talk to Dable about that. But Tyrone Tracy is that future running back for this Giants team. He put up over 140 yards. He is playing stellar. And out of this season, where Neighbors looked good early on, he's now suffering a bit of dropping issues. But they're going to produce some offensive pieces out of this season, which is good for the Giants in what is basically a lost season and a season wasted of Dexter Lawrence being possibly the best defensive player in football. So the Giants, number 26. I seriously thought things would change for this Dolphins team once they got Tua back, and they did, but did not really. This team loses 28-27 on a game winner by the Cardinals, and they're 2-5, and the season is almost lost. Even though Tua has just come back, that he had that one play where he slid, and the whole crowd went absolutely crazy, which is great to see. Tua played a great game in this one, in my opinion, for just coming back off a head injury. But the defense needed to step up a bit because they kind of let the Cardinals creep back into this game that it looked like the Dolphins had early on, but the Cardinals come back, they take the game. And ultimately, Miami, big game against the Bills. If you lose this one this week, it's pretty much over. So they're at 25. The Cleveland Browns are at 24, and look what happens once a different quarterback than Deshaun Watson is playing for this team. Jameis Winston throws for 300-plus yards in this game, something Deshaun Watson didn't do it in 19 starts as a Brown. And they get the job done. Their defense was able to stop a Ravens offense that looked pretty much unstoppable for the last 5 weeks. The offense just contributed. And even though people are going to look to the Ravens' mistakes in this one, don't count out the Browns as being that bad of a team because it was really they just had quarterback issues and trouble getting it to their weapons. And Jameis Winston seems like he can do that. So Cleveland, although their season might be over, they're going to play some close games for the rest of the season, and that's why I've moved them up a decent amount here, up 5-24. The Jaguars play a close game with the Packers, but they drop it 30-27, where they lost Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas to injury. Travis Etienne was not injured in this one, but it doesn't matter because Tank Bigsby seems like he's taken over that starting running back role. Trevor Lawrence had a solid game outside of a pick, and the Jaguars are playing solid football for being a 2-6 team, but it's just that this defense needs to come up a bit big, especially since the Packers lost their starting quarterback, and although that happened, the Packers began to play better offensively once that happened, which is not good for the Jaguars. So I'm going to keep them at 23. At number 22, I have the Dallas Cowboys, who lose to the 49ers on Sunday night. And what has happened? I don't know. Their offense just doesn't look as good. The defense doesn't look as good. I seriously think that what happened in the playoffs broke them. And although they seem like they have close games, this team just takes advantage of late game scores. That's why CeeDee Lamb had an amazing game, although for most of the game he did not. It's because this team scores late and makes it look closer than they are. They're practically getting destroyed in most of these games. And their 3 wins this season have come against the Steelers, Giants, and Browns, where they only have one impressive win there. And things just have to change in Dallas if they want to make the playoffs this season, and I don't know if they will. Colts are an interesting team to me because they're 4-4 right now, but the obvious issue to me was Anthony Richardson was not playing good at all this season. They've just made the move to Joe Flacco for Sunday night versus the Vikings, which I think is going to help this team a lot. I think the Colts are potentially a playoff team because the AFC is not great, and I don't think Richardson gets them there with the 44% completion percentage. I think that Joe Flacco could. But outside of that, this week was very winnable for them. If not for a late half pick by Richardson that just basically gave a free touchdown to the Texans late, they would have won this game. And they don't. So for Indy, interesting times ahead with Flacco under center, but for now they're at 21. The Los Angeles Rams move up 2 after winning, and they beat the Vikings on Thursday. They got back to what they were good at doing, and that's because Kupp and Nakua came back. And in an NFC West that is wide open, you have the 4-4 Niners, the 4-4 Cardinals, and the 4-4 Seahawks. The Rams could win it, and it just comes down to if they can win divisional games. That's what it's going to come down to for pretty much every team in that division, and I think they very possibly could, because this team showed that they were playoff worthy again once their pieces were back, and that's what you like to see out of the Rams. So for the Rams, I've moved them up 2 after beating the Vikings. The LA Chargers get the win over the Saints. They're 4-3, and this is a team that they have not shown me that they are a convincingly good football team, and I think they're going to hover around 500, but they're going to get these wins over the teams that they should beat. But the question for them is, can they beat teams that on paper are better than them? And I don't know if they can, but good job defensively. They didn't let the Saints do anything. And offensively, they did enough to get the job done. Ladd McConkey is looking like a great receiver for them. So right now, Chargers at 19. People don't know how the Denver Broncos are 5-3. They beat the Panthers this week, and it comes down to that the Broncos have probably had the easiest schedule in football so far. And I don't know if this Broncos team is talented enough to beat good teams and get the 9 or 10 wins that they need to make the playoffs. Bo Nix is looking more solid every week, and that's going to come with time. I think by the end of the season, you're going to see a lot of growth from Game 1 to Game 18. And for Bo Nix, it's just that this defense that they put around him is insane. And that is true for pretty much every rookie quarterback other than Drake May. But for the Broncos, great start, 5-3. I do have the Bengals higher than most people. I was seeing a lot of them, like the power rankings, putting the Bengals at around 22, 23. But I have them at 17 because I truly think this team has what it takes to make the playoffs more than some teams that are below them. And it just comes down to, can the Bengals win big games? They have lost to the Commanders. They've lost just recently to the Eagles. They've lost the games that they need to win against these big, good teams. They have not been winning. And that's what the Bengals are going to need to do down the stretch to make the playoffs. But I'm still kind of impressed with their offense, and that's going to do enough to keep them at 17. At number 16, I have the Seattle Seahawks, and they continue to confuse me about what they're doing, because they go from a Week 7 destruction of a great Falcons team to in Week 8 just laying an egg against the Bills. And I know the Bills are a great team, but Seattle, they're just confusing. And in a division where every team is hovering around 500, it's going to take 9 or 10 wins to win the division. They're going to need to win these divisional games, and their defense cannot play like that. Their offense can't make mistakes like the center tripping up Geno or a high snap. And they have a big game upcoming against the Rams. And let's see if the Seahawks can finally prove if they are a playoff team or if they're not. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are officially in panic mode because they drop a second game to the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons are going to have the tiebreaker, and for any chance of making the playoffs, which probably involves winning the NFC South, that's not good. This team doesn't have its top 2 receivers with Godwin out for the year and Evans out for a couple weeks. And at 500, this season could continue to spiral out of their control. And it's not their fault. They got injured, but they're going to need to win the games that they can win. And they have the Kansas City Chiefs next week, a team that, although they're 7-0, are very beatable. And let's see if the Buccaneers can do something or if they drop below 500. But right now I have them at 15. Finally, the Arizona Cardinals that the first couple weeks showed me have come out. They've won 2 in a row. They beat the Dolphins this week, and all of a sudden, this team's in a playoff spot. I wouldn't have thought that after their start, but I think this team has the pieces to win the NFC West. They are getting it done offensively. Trey McBride is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Marvin Harrison continues to put up a case why, if not Jaden Daniels, it should be him for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And this Cardinals team, I think they're sneaky. I think they're going to get into the postseason if they just win their divisional games. And that's what it comes down to in the NFC West. So right now they're at 14. It looked like the Bears were going to move to 5-2, but one Hail Mary later, they're 4-3. They dropped the game to the Commanders, where play calling was not at its best. They did run a goal line play to their backup center. They just had a lot of confusing plays because this offense, Shane Waldron, their offensive coordinator, just doesn't seem like he's that great. Defensively, this team is amazing. Matt Eberflus, the head coach, runs a great defense. And it's when the offense steps up is how the Bears are going to succeed. They just didn't against the Commanders in a very winnable game. And that's why the Bears might not be a playoff team in the NFC this season. But right now I have them at 13. 49ers get that win over the Dallas Cowboys, and they're back at 500. Brock Purdy played pretty well. George Kittle on National Tight Ends Day, the holiday that he created, he gets a touchdown. The defense outside of Cowboys garbage time football really came through, and the 49ers are back at 4-4, and they just have to get above 500. They have not gotten above 500 the entire season, and they just have to do that. So for the 49ers, I think that they're going to get it going, and they're going to need to if they want to win the division. So 49ers at 12. The Atlanta Falcons get that win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they have beaten their really only opposition in the division twice, and that is huge. This team is 5-3. They look like they're going to win the NFC South this season, and it's good because of how much talent they have. Kirk Cousins, amazing football for the Falcons this year. Kyle Pitts gets it going with a 2-touchdown day, and it's just looking up in Atlanta. I think they're playing great football, and they have a game against the Cowboys this week where that's another team that if you beat, that reputation for the Falcons goes up. So right now I have them at 11. This Vikings team started 5-0. All of a sudden they're now 5-2. They've lost 2 in a row. And it just comes down to this Brian Flores defense that was originally a bright spot of this team has started to allow lots of points. And Thursday was no different. They let the Rams score 4 touchdowns on them. They lost 30-20. And the Vikings, I think, are a good team. I think the Vikings have what it takes to get into the playoffs, but they're in their first little rough patch of the season. And with players like Justin Jefferson on that offense, I think they're going to figure it out. But for now, Minnesota, they dropped down a couple of spots in these rankings to number 10. The Steelers continue to show why they have one of the best defenses in football. They get a key turnover late from TJ Watt. They had a game-ending pick late, and their defense kind of bails out their offense. Their offense failed to get going in the first half, but once Russell Wilson's on, he was cooking in this one. Russell Wilson, great game from him. Calvin Austin had a return and a regular touchdown. George Pickens had a couple touchdowns called off, but he had a big catch late. And the Steelers team really is getting it going. This team is currently leading the AFC North, and that's something I would have never thought going into the season. I thought it would have been the Ravens or Bengals, but for now, Pittsburgh at number 9. And talking about the Ravens, they lost the Browns this week. They had a 5-game win streak snapped by a team that only had 1 win before this week. And Derrick Henry is about to hit 1,000 rushing yards, and it's only week 9. That is crazy to me. He should get Offensive Player of the Year, but his rushing counterpart, Lamar, his MVP hopes for back-to-back kind of get hurt a bit this week with a not-so-great game from him. I thought they could have done a lot more against a Browns defense that is good in nature but hasn't been playing like it. And ultimately, Ravens, they're going to need to get 1 or 2 more proven wins for me to actually believe that they're a top-tier Super Bowl contender once again. So right now I have them at 8. Philadelphia continues to answer my questions about them. 2 weeks ago, I wondered, is this team really that great? And they, after winning 28-3 over the Giants, and this week having a big win over the Bengals, I'm officially all in on that the Eagles are a good team. Saquon has another big day rushing. Jalen Hurts continues to score multiple touchdowns a game on that tush push. And the defense comes up big in huge moments. They had a nice pick where Isaiah Rodgers tipped it to C.J. Gardner-Johnson for the pick. But ultimately, this Eagles team looking great here as the season goes on. And they're going to contend with this next team for the NFC East. And that team is the Washington Commanders. The Commanders get the Hail Mary win over the Chicago Bears, where it looked all over. They allowed a late touchdown, but Jaden Daniels works magic, gets it to Noah Brown for the game winner, and to get this team to 6-2, which really sums up how great Jaden Daniels has been playing this season. Although that was their first touchdown of the game, he had a great day, and the defense really stuck up there. Dan Quinn is having a great year coaching-wise, and the Commanders, although before the season many would have not said it, the Commanders are definitely a contender for the Super Bowl. So I have them at number 6. The Texans get another close win over the Indianapolis Colts, and their defense had a couple stands late that ended up leading to saving the offense with a late fumble, but it did not matter because of that defense. And offensively, they didn't have Nico Collins. They lose Stephon Diggs for the season in this one. And this season has been interesting for the Texans. They're going to get Nico Collins back soon. Tank Dell is there. Joe Mixon is playing great. He had a highlight reel touchdown in this game. But the Texans, they are Super Bowl contenders, and right now I have them at 5. The Buffalo Bills get the win over the Seattle Seahawks this week, where I thought, even though Josh Allen threw his first pick of the season, he had another great game. He is really helping that Bills team, and that's why he is my current MVP pick. But the defense really stuck up in this one for a great performance. They only allowed 10 points. And the offense, Keon Coleman had a crazy catch over Tariq Woolen, and he has really started to blossom like multiple counterparts of his draft. He's starting to come out into being a great receiver. Amari Cooper didn't do much this week, but I expect that connection to only get better over time. And it's just looking very good for the Bills, who are 4 games up in the division, and it is only week 9. So the Bills, looking great for them. They'll be in the playoffs, and they're at number 4. The Green Bay Packers are at number 3, and Jordan Love got hurt in this one, but it didn't matter. Malik Willis gets his 3rd win of the season. I count this as a win for him because he ended up getting the points the Packers needed to win. And it's going to be interesting. This team plays the Lions next week in what is going to be a huge game for not just the NFC North, but practically the entire NFL, because these are 2 of the best teams going at it. But McKinney gets another pick. He has 6 on the year, and what an off-season acquisition for the Packers. Josh Jacobs, the other off-season acquisition, had over 120 yards and a touchdown. So right now, looking good for Green Bay. Kansas City, they are 7-0, and they're at number 2 this week because they get the big win over the Vegas Raiders, where the Chiefs finally get the ball to Kelsey. Kelsey gets a touchdown in this one. Mahomes didn't play bad in this one, which is a contradiction to how he's been playing the last couple of weeks. So there seems like there's progress on the offense, but the defense of the Chiefs continues to play well, and that's what's been winning them games. DeAndre Hopkins, the new acquisition, he's only going to get better for the Chiefs, and it's just looking great. So for the Chiefs, top of the AFC, number 2 on the list. And that brings me to easily the best team in the NFL, the Detroit Lions. They absolutely killed the Titans in week 8, where it was never close. And for the Lions, they get it from everybody. They get rushing touchdowns from both Sonic and Knuckles, that name of that duo. They get a return touchdown. They get 3 passing touchdowns from a day from Jared Goff, where he only had 85 yards. And the Lions are just getting contributions from all sides of the football. And that's why they're looking like the best team and the team to beat across the entire NFL this season. But that is going to do it for this week's Power Rankings. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will see you guys for Week 9's Power Rankings.